At first, I did not know why, but there had always been something off about her. I seemed to be the only one who noticed this, though. First time I noticed it was at a local winter carnival. We were on a ride, enjoying our time together and having fun. She was acting kind of distant, but I just shrugged it off as nothing. At this game where you had to throw a ball at some plates to break them, I won a pretty big teddy bear after breaking 5 of them. I smiled and gave it to her. I said something along the lines of, "For the most amazing girl in the universe," and handed over the enormous stuffed animal. What threw me off at first was that she just took it and said nothing, not even looking at me. It kind of upset me, but I did not want to make it awkward or something by asking about it. The weirdest part, though, was that a few minutes after I had given it to her and we had started walking to the next ride, she looked up at me and said, "Thank you," in this over-enthusiastic voice and smiled widely at me. The second time was at a family dinner between both our families. Our families were chatting happily back and forth about things like when me and my girlfriend would get married, or when we decide to adopt a child, and so on. Almost everyone were laughing and making jokes, including me. I'm not the most sociable type, but I feel comfortable with the people I'm talking to. I'll be almost as outgoing as an extrovert. But my girlfriend was not laughing or making jokes as she usually would, being the social one in our relationship. She was just staring at the plate and had barely touched the food, even though she had always liked the food I would cook. She had not said a word since the beginning of this dinner, and it was kind of annoying me. I leaned over to my mom and whispered, "Do you think Rose is acting weird?" My mom looked at me like I had just said the most ridiculous thing in the world. "What? No, not at all." After she said that, she turned back and started chatting with the others again. My mom did not even mention what I had said to the others. I could have sworn my girlfriend had looked at me while I had been talking to my mom, but when I turned my head to check if she was still looking, she was happily talking to the others too. Again, I did not think much of it until recently. Oh, it's been worse recently. She's been talking less, and I felt like I was being watched almost everywhere. At work, with friends, even while shopping for groceries. Each time I turned around to check, there would be nothing. I've also been waking up with these bruises and small red marks. I just figured that perhaps it was because I was clumsy and that I had just walked into something throughout the day without noticing. But the more I think about it, the more ridiculous that idea sounds. My hair has not been growing for the past couple of years, which is odd, but I just came to the conclusion that my hair could not grow longer than that. You probably think I'm just paranoid by now, but I know I'm not paranoid. I knew there was something up. Today, after returning from work, I yelled out her name to check if she was home. No answer. I figured she was out with friends or running some errands. I took off my shoes, threw my keys on the table, and hung my jacket on the coat rack. When I stepped out into the main hall, I could feel a cold breeze that sent shivers up my spine. I quickly checked the house for open windows, but there was nothing. Maybe we had just forgotten to turn on the thermostat or something. It was quite cold outside after all. I checked the entire house again just to be sure. But this time, when I walked by the basement door in the back of the house, I could feel the cold air on my feet. It came from the basement. This was weird though, since we rarely went down there. And by rarely, I mean never. The only time I've ever been down there was when we moved into the house and we had some moving boxes we did not want to get rid of. The basement door was always locked, so it shocked me that when I put my hand on the doorknob and turned, the door clicked and opened slightly. Confused, I carefully opened the door completely. It was dark, and I could only see the stairs leading down into the blackness of the basement. I started walking slowly, keeping close to the wall. It felt like I had been walking for quite a while when I suddenly could feel the cold concrete floor beneath my feet. I fumbled for the light switch on the wall and pressed it when I found it. A single light bulb in the middle of the room lit up, but I still could not see where the cold air was coming from. I stepped away from the wall and walked over to the light bulb. It flickered sometimes, and it had that well-known humming sound that old light bulbs have. When my eyes had gotten a bit used to the dim light, I looked around and could make out some of the shapes that seemed to be boxes, an old closet, a broken chair, and the giant teddy bear I had given to her at the winter carnival a couple of years ago. It kind of surprised me, and maybe also made me a bit sad or disappointed that she had just put it down here to get dusty and eventually break after enough rats had crawled on it or enough insects had chosen it as their home. At this point, I had forgotten why I was even down here in the first place. It was pretty close, so I did not have to walk a lot closer to it to be able to see it. I still hadn't gotten completely used to the lack of light, but I was close enough to touch it, and I could see the silhouette of its head. I reached out to touch it, and I expected it to be dusty and gross. But when my fingers touched the bear's stomach, it was soft. Softer than I remember. Almost as soft as real hair or fur. I felt around on the bear to check if it was the entire teddy that felt like this. When my fingers got to where the arm was supposed to be attached, I felt something. Something both chunky, sticky, and a bit wet. I looked down at the hands to see red clumps of some dried red stuff that I, in that moment of surprise, could not figure out what it was. What the fuck? I quietly said out loud. My eyes had gotten completely used to the bad lighting now, and I looked back at the big teddy bear. I don't know how I did not see this the first time I looked at it. What the fuck? I said even louder than before. A paper with a picture of my face was messily taped onto the face of the poor stuffed animal with duct tape. Both its arms and legs had been amputated, and a liquid, which I now assume is blood, was smeared over the places where the arms and legs had previously been. Startled, I stepped backwards and tripped on the chair leg that had been laying on the ground. I fell backwards, but was saved by the huge amount of boxes that had been standing there. I stood up again, shaking. I noticed that the boxes were now broken, and all of the contents was strewn all over the floor. Holy fucking hell. Hundreds or even thousands of pictures of me were laying on the ground. I was in disbelief. It was me doing casual stuff like talking to friends or going grocery shopping. My hands were shaking, and I was fumbling to find my phone. I first checked my front pockets, then my back pockets. Thank God it was in the back right pocket. I could feel my adrenaline rushing. I only had so much time to call the police before she came home. I heard our main door creak open and a familiar voice shout, "Emily?" I had to hide. I looked around and saw the closet. "Emily, where are you?" she continued. I opened the closet door and crawled in behind all the old coats and shirts hanging in there. "It smells like dust and mothballs in here." "I know you're home." I could hear her heels clicking on the floor. She never took her shoes off when she went inside, even when I asked her to. I'm still sitting in the closet right now. I'm terrified that if I call the police, she'll hear me. I think I've been here for over half an hour. She's been shouting for me to come out, and I can hear all our doors being slammed shut one by one. I think she's looking for me. I forgot to close the basement door before I went down here. So sooner or later, she'll know that I know. I just heard the basement door shut. The sound of her heels on the stairs are echoing through our basement. I'm really fucking scared. I don't want to die. She was walking around before, but the sound of her heels just stopped. She knows where I am. I'm sure of it.